Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. I am your host, Matt Cooper. With me are my co-hosts, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, my man?
And Matt Jackson.
What's going on, guys?
Just another late night podcast after a horrendous day 2 of the NFL draft, at least if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football like we do.
So disgusting.
And, like the players that we liked. But anyway, we're going to get into it. There's a lot to pick through here, and you definitely have to pick through some weeds to get to the good stuff. So the good stuff's a little few and far between. Our great show notes, stats, data guy, Garrett, shout out to him. He has got us 20 guys listed. I think there were more than that as far as like offensive players taken. Maybe he listed all of them. I don't know, but not all of them are going to be fantasy relevant. So we're going to talk about it. Some people, our comment may be as quick as he's not relevant. Let's move on. But yeah, we'll sort through it. We'll talk through what's important for you guys to know coming out of day 2 of the NFL draft. So let's get right into it. The very first pick of the second round was Dejon Stribling from Ole Miss to the San Francisco 49ers. Stribling had a 5-year college career going from Washington State, Oklahoma State, and then eventually Ole Miss. Only 1.66 yards per route run in his collegiate career, which is not a great number. Yeah, I mean, they could use a wide receiver, right? Like Ayuk's gone, Jennings has moved on. They basically got Pearsall, and Kittle's coming off of an Achilles, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there in San Francisco, and they just invested a high pick in him. Are we in on Stribling? I'll throw it to you, Rupert.
Not at the price he's probably going to be going. I liked his athleticism, but I thought he was fairly raw as a prospect, which is startling as a 5-year collegiate player. You would like to see someone that's a little more advanced by that point in their career. So he's like an older prospect. I mean, I think he fits their system because he can do the routes down the field and play action, but I just don't see myself having any shares at probably the cost he's going to be going in rookie drafts.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if he can do the routes down the field. Like, one of the biggest notes that I made on him when we did the film watch on Stribling, you see, he's got the size, he's got the speed, and he can't really run routes. Like, he's just a big, fast guy that is not a route runner. And it's just so funny. Like, I read out the tweet in our Discord chat, our Discord hangout today, and every skill position that the 49ers have drafted on day 2 in the Shanahan era. You got Stribling, then you got Cameron Latu, you got Tyrion Davis-Price, Danny Gray, Trey Sermon, Jalen Hurd, Dante Pettis. Like, this is a classic case of the 49ers going, you know what, I'm smarter than everybody else, and picking somebody that doesn't deserve to get drafted as early as he did. Like, he's just not a good player, and I think we can just move on. Like, he is what he is.
Yeah, but we do need to talk about it because when you go that early and you go to a team with that much opportunity, like, he is going to be a player that guys in the dynasty community are interested in. And it's not like there's nothing to like on tape. Like, he's pretty good after the catch, good size, good athleticism, blocks really well. So, the NFL team is going to like that. That's something that Juwan Jennings always did exceptionally well. And so he's going to fill right in on that. I think that's going to help the 49ers offense, but that doesn't necessarily make you fantasy relevant. So, I mean, this one is worth talking about, but again, we had him just in our recliner rating, which is our proprietary film grading system. We had him at a 63.59, which that score on our scale puts him in the range of an average backup. So that's the kind of talent that we thought he had. And, in previous years, when a guy is graded that low for us and then goes high in the draft, we've had pretty good success fading, whether that's been an Xavier Legette or a Jalen Polk or, you know, so on and so forth. Like if we're that low on a guy and a team overdrafts on a Jonathan Mingo, if you want to helmet scout another Ole Miss guy that had a terrible production profile and, wasn't much more than like a big athlete. So yeah, it's worth talking about, if only to tell our listeners, hey, like I know it's a bad class. I know there's opportunity there, but I would avoid him. So moving on, Denzel Boston goes to the Cleveland Browns, second round, pick 40, early second round. So they double down on wide receiver. They took Concepcion in the first, and they go Boston in the second. How are we feeling about that pairing, and what do we make of that for Harold Fannin and Jerry Jeudy? I'll throw it to you,
Yeah,
Jackson.
I honestly love that pairing because they complement each other so well, right? You got Denzel Boston, who's the perimeter, go up, get it, contested catch guy. He's got solid hands, and then you got Casey Concepcion, who's great after the catch, does a lot of stuff underneath, short area of the field. Like they do different things, and they both do them at a really high level. Um, I think for me, the biggest effector that or the biggest person that this affects is like your Jerry Jeudy, right? I think at this point the writing goes on the wall for Jerry Jeudy. They're moving on from him. He's gone. You know,
See ya.
he's toast at this point. I think it's interesting to note just when you look at Harold Fannin, like Harold Fannin, obviously is going to lose some targets here. Um, do they have a quarterback on their roster that can support three mouths on this offense? I don't know if they do right now. So there might be some patience here that you have to wait a year until somebody else gets in that room. But honestly, for the future success and for future fantasy, like those two, and then even Harold Fannin, like they all three work together so well, in my opinion. And Jerry Jeudy is honestly just the lost guy in this whole equation.
Yeah, I think Fannin and Concepcion are going to be the target hogs here in this offense. And, Denzel Boston, he's going to be a touchdown dependent guy. From a stylistic standpoint, we comped him to Cortland Sutton. And, if you think about this, I've heard a lot of people say that Todd Monken, when they took Concepcion in day one, that he went and got his Zay Flowers for this offense. And I like that comparison for Concepcion. I think Concepcion's ceiling is higher than that. The ceiling comp that I've thrown out for him, and this is, again, hear me, ceiling. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is, when you're talking range of outcomes, on the high range of outcomes for his size profile and his separation ability, Stephon Diggs is a name that comes to mind for me for Casey Concepcion. So, yeah, I think Rupert, maybe at one point you threw out a Deontay Johnson comp for Concepcion. So that's the style of player that you're talking about, and that style of player certainly complements a Cortland Sutton. So, if we're trying to put established NFL names on it, just to give people an idea of how these two work together, like Zay Flowers and Cortland Sutton, that would be a pretty nice little 1-2 punch. I don't know who you compare Fannin to, but yeah, I mean that's a nice room of weapons for whoever ends up being the long-term quarterback of that team, but it is a lot of mouths to feed. I'm not knocking Concepcion down from anything I said about him last night. I might knock Denzel Boston down my rankings a little bit just because I do think he's third in the target pecking order there. At best, that's assuming they move on from Jeudy, they move on from Tillman, all that, and all these rookies are on the field. I would think that Boston would be third there, but could be a guy that racks up a lot of touchdowns. So third here, y'all's guy. Not that I don't like him, I like him, but y'all have been bullish on Jeremy Bernard, and he goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round, pick 47. They were 21st in the NFL in N/YA. Sorry, Garrett, I don't know what that stat means. But it says AKA not pushing the ball downfield. So there we go. they didn't push the ball down the field. Aaron Rodgers was dead last among qualified passers in ADOT. I know that one, average depth of target. But yeah, I mean, you've got a player in Jeremy Bernard that you don't really need to push the ball down the field because he's a yak guy. He's, a over the middle kind of threat. My concern, though, I mean, you're probably not looking at a great passing attack in spite of having three great pass catching weapons in DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and Jeremy Bernard. But you've got whatever's left of Aaron Rodgers at quarterback not pushing the ball down the field, as Garrett noted with these data points. And that's if Rodgers comes back, which we still don't know for sure. So if he doesn't, we're looking at like Drew Allar and Will Howard, which, nightmare. So, yeah, we'll talk about, we probably won't talk about Drew Allar much, but we will talk about him a little bit later because he also went day 2 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And yeah, I don't know. I think this is a pretty gross landing spot, if I'm being completely honest, for Jeremy Bernard. He's the third fiddle in the passing attack, and the very, very murky quarterback situation, especially after this year, even if they get Rodgers for a year. How long does it take them to find their long-term guy? I don't know. So are you guys still excited about Jeremy Bernard after this, or are you cooled on him?
I mean, I still love the talent. I mean, I'm definitely not expecting a lot this year. I still think that they're going to find a way to get him involved. I like the fit with Mike McCarthy's system, so I'm still bullish long term. I'm just not expecting him to help you win a fantasy championship this year.
Yeah, I don't like it as much as I originally did. I think when the pick first got made, I got in the Discord chat. I said that I love the pick. And then you so kindly reminded me that Michael Pittman is now on the Steelers, and I liked it. I liked it less after I remembered that he's a Steeler now.
I forgot about that too.
I think. I mean, you make valid points. He's wide receiver 3 or third target on his team now, which isn't ideal. I think maybe the saving grace in this is because he is such a good yards after the catch guy, can be used in a lot of these, backfields, wildcats, out into the slot, out into the flats. Like, I think there's a path where we can maybe see a little more production than even we're saying right now. I don't think it's going to be a great rookie season, but I can see a path where he provides some value.
I hear a lot of hopium and copium coming through the microphones here, but no, I mean, look, I like the player. I have him graded as a flex option in my recliner rating. I honestly thought that the talent on tape matched the lackluster production profile, in the sense that, like, I did not see a guy on tape that to me is going to be a high volume player ever in the NFL. Not just this. I'm not just talking about, you're gonna have to be patient. Not gonna be a great rookie year. I don't see him ever being a featured part of an NFL offense. I think there are nice things that he does. I think he's a good player. He's physical. He blocks well. I think he's going to be on an NFL field a lot. I think he's going to help an NFL team. But I don't think he's ever going to be a featured part of an offense. So my grade of flex option, I think that's like probably his ceiling for his whole NFL career is flex option. And I don't think that ceiling will be realized right away because, again, how many guys are third on their team in targets and are fantasy relevant? Not that many. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going to end up with him ranked, because as we continue going through day 2 here, there's just not that much in this draft class to get excited. It was already a bad draft class. The draft itself is tanking a lot of the guys that we did like. And, so he might still be like an early second round pick for me. But I think in most years he wouldn't be. So yeah, I mean, we'll have a lot of sorting to do through our rankings tomorrow after you're getting our instant reactions here. We haven't necessarily set our rankings based off of day 2 here yet. So number 4 here, Eli Stowers, Philadelphia Eagles, round 2, pick 54. If you've been following along with Couch Scouts, we haven't been the biggest Stowers guys. We definitely warmed up to him on our second watch. I personally had him graded as a flex option after my second watch of him. I see the upside, right? I can see with his athletic profile and his, college production and the second round draft capital, like we're not right 100% of the time. If he ended up like being a really good fantasy asset, like it wouldn't completely shock me. That being said, he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, so he's got to wait a year, presumably behind Goddard, unless he does what Fannin did last year. Everybody thought he would have to wait a year behind Njoku, and Fannin just took it by storm. So if Stowers is really that guy, and we're just wrong on him, maybe that happens. But even if that happened, you still got Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon there, and that's assuming they trade AJ Brown, which I think is pretty safe to say at this point. But yeah, I mean, this is not a great landing spot for Stowers, I don't think, because I don't see him like you want a tight end to be a top 2 target earner on his team, and he's just not. Like Lemon, to me, Lemon and Devontae Smith are clearly going to earn more targets than him. So yeah, I don't know. Where are you guys at on Stowers after this pick? Is he going to go up your rankings, down your rankings, stay the same?
I mean,
Probably
I don't
stay
think
the same.
yeah, I don't think he's going up in my rankings, but I don't think he's going down either. Like just because it is such a weird day 2, and the guys that we did like are honestly still on the board right now. So
Yeah.
I don't see him going down any. I did say in our chat tonight that like as an Eagles fan, like I love the Stowers pick, right? Like he comes in, he's the incumbent to Dallas Goddard. We've got our tight end of the future. Like I love that, but as a fantasy football player, like this was the one spot that I didn't want to see him go to, right? Like he's got to at least at this point, you said wait a year behind Goddard. He's a tight end 2 right now, unless he does what Harold Fannin did, which maybe is likely, maybe he's not. I don't know. But even when he does come in, you've got like you said, Mekhi Lemon, you've got Devontae Smith, you've
Mm-hmm.
got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Stowers, I'm not sure as a guy that can be that red zone threat, based on his ball skills that we talked about, in his profile. And even when we do get down the red zone, that's Jalen Hurts, tush push time. It's already a low volume passing offense as it is already. Like there's a lot of red flags for me to see him be fantasy relevant anytime. Maybe not fantasy relevant, but a fantasy flex
High-end
option
fantasy
start.
starter at the
Yeah,
tight end
yeah.
position. Not just one of those like 15 to 20 guys that you can throw in your lineup and hope that they get a touchdown. There's a lot of those.
Like
But
that
to
was
be a difference-making tight end, you have to be a top 2 option on your offense. So yeah, that's for like if you just had to be patient for a year and wait for Goddard to move on, that'd be one thing. I'm fine with that. But knowing that even after that happens, he's probably still third fiddle, and Lemon and Devontae Smith aren't going anywhere, that's the bigger concern. So, Rupert, I don't know if you have anything to add there, but I think he probably is going to move up my rankings, but only because like 5 of the guys in front of him haven't been drafted yet and are going to be day 3 guys. But we'll talk about that maybe later on. So, yeah, this is a day 2 reaction show, but part of reacting to day 2 is the guys that didn't get drafted that now are day 3 picks. And we won't have a day 3 reaction show. We will have a post NFL draft rookie mock after day 3, but we won't have like a specific day 3 reaction show. So we'll react to some of those guys that didn't get picked here at the end of this show. But those were like the biggest names. There's one more guy that I think is a really big name for sure that we need to talk about. But yeah, we'll go a little bit quicker for the rest of the show. Max Clare goes to the Rams. We like the player. I think he's an intriguing, like upside stash, but I like him more than Ferguson from last year. Like a good bit more. And so they took second round pick tight end 2 years in a row. Pick 61, Claire goes here. And they also still have Parkinson and Higbee. They ran 3 tight end sets at the highest rate in the entire NFL. So assuming that Claire can beat out Ferguson or Higbee or Parkinson, like if he beats out one of those guys, he'll be on the field a decent amount. I think you've got to be patient, but there's some upside there long term. I'm interested. He's a guy that'll probably be moving up my rankings because of this landing spot. Rupert, you agree with that?
Right in alignment with you.
Yep. All right. So Carson Beck goes to the Arizona Cardinals, round 3, pick 65. Now he is in a quarterback competition, presumably with Jacoby Brissett to be the QB1. And Brissett is under contract but holding out right now of offseason workouts because he wants starter money. So maybe they're like, well, you're not a starting caliber player. And I'm an NC State guy. I love me some Jacoby Brissett. Long-term journeyman backup in the league, has had a few opportunities to start and never really been able to like helm a winning franchise. Like he can put you up some numbers, but he's not a winning if he's your starting caliber, if he is your starting quarterback on your NFL team, you're not a contender instantly. Like that, it just is what it is. So as much as I like the guy, that's the situation. So Carson Beck, we don't love Carson Beck. Day 3 or round 3, not day 3, round 3. We're tired here. It's late. Round 3 is not great draft capital for a quarterback. The hit rate on round 3 quarterbacks for fantasy is low. But there's a pretty clear path here to an opportunity. Maybe reminds me a little bit of like the Tyler Shuck with Spencer Rattler situation. I don't think Jacoby Brissett is as bad as Spencer Rattler, but in a weak draft class, you could do worse than taking a shot on Carson Beck. And if he wins that job and sees a value boost, you could flip him. I mean, heck, like I don't want to dismiss the guy because Shuck was a guy last year that we did not think highly of, and we just dismissed him. But now he's like, what, a 3rd round startup pick, 4th round startup pick, something like that. So there is some upside here with Beck if he can win that job. How high are you comfortable taking Carson Beck in your rookie draft? I'll throw it to you, Jackson.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting one because there's a real path. I mean, if there was a team that you wanted to see, quarterback land with, like Arizona was one of those teams, like weak starting quarterback, a quarterback that's holding out, there's a legitimate shot to start here. And I don't think the price that you have to pay for like a Carson Beck is super high, honestly. Like realistically, and this again is day 2 reactions. I haven't seen any mock drafts. I don't know how people are reacting to this,
Right.
but I have to think like he's going, the anywhere between the 201 to 204, 205 range right now in rookie drafts, which for that price in a weaker class, we've already seen some guys that, after pick 108, let's just be honest, like this draft gets disgusting.
It definitely does.
So if I'm going to take a shot on somebody that can, at the very least, accrue value, and at the most is a starting quarterback for however long it may be, and I can flip that for something else, like Carson Beck's not a bad guy to go out there and get at the value that you're going to be able to get him at. And despite the fact that we weren't super high on him, like at the end of the day, he's going to be competing for a starting quarterback position, and that should be worth it in your rookie drafts to me.
Agreed.
Anything to add there, Rupert?
Yeah, I just double tap on what you said. Like with how gross the second round looks like it's going to be now. Like he's a guy that you can flip value. So maybe you can draft him in the second round this year and flip him for I don't know, maybe like 2 seconds next year. I'm just spitballing, but anything you can do to try to recur some value when it doesn't seem like you're going to have too many opportunities at that point where you're drafting him, I think is a smart play. Like he has some promising moments on tape and then some knuckleheaded moments. So maybe he's just one of those guys that maybe he can be good for fantasy for a little bit. or B, a Jacoby Brissett that's kind of a journeyman where he has some kind of value in Superflex where he's a backup that can come in and start some games. So
he's got some big arm talent.
Yeah. So yeah, he's probably going to be another guy that's also moving up my rankings a little bit.
Yep. And a lot of these guys that are moving up, it's just by default of a lot of other guys that we liked moving down, unfortunately. But we'll see. Like day 3 is not a death sentence. Okay. Like Cam Scatterby went day 3 last year. We were still in. He turned into a really solid fantasy asset. So all hope is not lost. We will see if Mike Washington Jr., for example, was to go to like the Vikings, who don't have a running back at all on day 3. I would, he's not fallen crazy far down my rankings if that happens, So yeah, let's continue on. Sam Roosh goes to the Chicago Bears, round 3, pick 68. Not much to say here. He was, a guy that graded out for us as kind of like a backup, and that's what he is. He's actually the 3rd string. You've got Loveland and then Cole Kmet, and Sam Roosh is just kind of buried. So not too interested in him there from a dynasty standpoint. But one guy I am very interested in, Antonio Williams, goes to the Washington Commanders, round 3, pick 71. And to me, when I'm looking at that roster, I'm like, okay, you got a 30-something-year-old Terry McLaurin. You have Debo's now a free agent, so maybe like he still hasn't signed anywhere. Maybe he comes back and signs a deal here. I don't know. Just because there's familiarity, that's always a possibility. But like Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey, and like it's not a lot of inspiring options. So to me, there's a very real possibility that Antonio Williams steps in and is the wide receiver 2 for Jaden Daniels on day 1. He's a talented player. We really liked his tape. I had him graded as a fantasy starter, like low end, just barely, but his grade did come out for me as a fantasy starter, and he gets the opportunity to be one. So 3rd round draft capital is not amazing, but again, in a weak draft class, a player that we really liked, a great opportunity, great landing spot. This was one of the few bright spots in a pretty depressing day 2 for me. And right now, looking at my rankings, I think I'm going to have Antonio Williams inside my top 10, which feels crazy. Like, I think it speaks to how gross this class is, because a 3rd round undersized slot wide receiver would not usually be in the top 10 of a rookie draft, but it is what it is. And look, I like Antonio Williams. I like the opportunity here. He's going to be a guy that I hope to come away with some shares of.
Agree. I think we will. I don't know a lot of other people in the community who are going to be taking top 10. I was laughing off screen there, like, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be a 1st round pick for me. He's, like you said, just love the talent, love the opportunity. He's not the prototypical fantasy dominator, but he's just that reliable slot guy that gets open, is going to get you PPR points. So, yeah. I got a feeling we're probably going to come away with a lot of shares.
What's really interesting is he honestly too profiles really well, as opposite of Terry McLaurin. I know McLaurin's getting up there in age, 31, but you've got McLaurin who works the boundaries. His average depth of target, pretty season in and season out, is pretty high. He likes to work kind of the deeper zones of the field. And then you've got Antonio Williams who comes in, and right now, looking at my CouchScouts grades, like he had the high, or tied with the highest with Casey Concepcion for short to intermediate areas of the field and route running. So I think even in that aspect, they complement each other's skill sets really well. And he immediately, in my mind, steps into that role as wide receiver 2. And for what we've seen based on today, that's worthy, as crazy as it may sound, of a 1st round pick in your rookie drafts.
For sure. Yeah. So let's get on with the show. And before we do, I do want to take a quick second, which I forgot to do last night on the round 1 reaction show. But I want to shout out for you guys the awesome resources that we have at CouchScouts.com. We're running a promo right now. You can use code DRAFT to get 30% off your first year with us, and we are hard at work. We've already got 72 prospects scouted and full scouting reports, film grades, rankings, like everything that you're going to need to sort out which of these players do I take. We have our pre-draft rankings in there. We will have our post-draft rankings finalized, and in there we're adding an updated section to each profile with kind of an updated fantasy outlook after the draft and our reaction to their landing spot. So all of that will hopefully be out. Our plan is like within 48 hours of the end of at the end of day 3, that hopefully we would have that whole post draft update pushed out for you guys. I know this is the time of the year that a lot of people are going to start scheduling their one-on-one consultations with us, which we've heard really good feedback on from the people who have done that. I had one member reach out today and said if you guys sold that as a standalone option, he would buy 2 or 3 more every year. So people really love those, and yeah, lots of value packed into that thing. So check out CouchScouts.com, use promo code DRAFT, get 30% off. And yeah, we would appreciate you guys being part of the Couch Scouts family. So with that being said, let's get into the second half of the show. And I'm going to bury the lead. It gets a little ugly from here. There's not a lot else to get excited about after Antonio Williams for me from a fantasy perspective. So
just a little bit this second half, I would say.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Some stashes.
It's not all
right.
big.
Some guys that would normally be like fun 3rd round dart throws that you might have to spend a 2nd round pick on this year.
Yeah.
So you got Oscar Delp goes to the New Orleans Saints, round 3, pick 73. Intriguing player. Juwan Johnson is there. I don't know how old he is or how much he has left on his contract. But
I think he's 29 now.
29. So potential for Delp to kind of develop and carve out a role there. But it's a crowded offense. You've got Olave, you've got Tyson, you've got Etienne, Kamara's still there. So I'm not expecting anything from Delp anytime soon, but there's some intriguing athletic tapes there and traits there. And I think he's a decent stash, and you could probably get him in round 3 or 4 of your rookie draft. And honestly, by the time you get to round 3 or 4 in this class, yeah, like you're throwing shots in the dark. So Delp is as good a shot as anybody. Yeah. Malachi Fields goes to the New York Giants, round 3, pick 74. Even with 140 vacated targets by Wan'Dale Robinson, Malik Neighbors is going to eat up most of that since he missed time. Isaiah Likely also has been added into the fold, likely to get some targets. What sort of target share is left for Fields? Like you're looking at, that's kind of a gross, like if Isaiah Likely is your 2nd leading target getter, that's not great. But Malik Neighbors is a stud at least. I don't know, like Fields, we don't really love the tape. The player, he's not a great separator, but he does have pretty elite ball skills. I think he's going to be out there on the field, but probably in more of a sacrificial X role, maybe a best ball guy. What are y'all's thoughts on Fields after this landing spot?
Like, he's not a guy that's going to earn targets because he doesn't get open. He may get some YOLO balls, and like you said, his ball skills are really good, so he can be a weapon in the red zone. So I think at best he's going to be a best ball option. Other than that, I just don't see him earning a ton of targets.
Yeah, no, he's that big, fast guy, right? Big, can get the jump ball, decent speed, but just route running, like you said, Rupert, not earning targets. I think he's going to be one of those players that in best ball is worth owning because he'll catch like a 60-yard bomb every once in a while. But he's also the type of player that you're going to expect some like 1, 2, 3-point performances from. And I don't think he's going to guy that you're going to feel comfortable starting week in and week out, even with those vacated targets.
Yeah, he's kind of like in the DJ Chark realm of player, maybe. Like he'll hang around the league and he'll have enough useful weeks here and there that you feel like you should roster him and not drop him to waivers, but you also are probably never going to feel comfortable starting him. So, the next wide receiver to go off the board, surprisingly to me, was Caleb Douglas out of Texas Tech. He goes to the Miami Dolphins, round 3, pick 75. So a lot of guys that we liked a lot more than Caleb Douglas still on the board. At this point, Chris Brazell is still there, Ted Hurst, Chris Bell, Surratt still hasn't been taken. So yeah, there was a lot of guys on the board at this point that, yeah, and Miami really needs a receiver. There's nobody there. So there's potentially an opportunity. We'll talk about another guy that they took here in a minute, but there could be a battle for wide receiver 1 between a lot of guys who wouldn't normally have a chance to be a wide receiver 1, Caleb Douglas being one of those players. How interested are we in Caleb Douglas after this landing spot? Rupert?
That's such a bleak wide receiver room that he can even compete for the number 1 targets at wide receiver. He just has awful ball skills. I like everything about him, like winning contested catches, just making normal catches. He just drops the ball so often. He's okay at running. He's athletic, but I just don't see it at all. I don't understand this pick, and not to bury the lead, who they picked later is the guy I'm interested in.
I'm going to play the other side a little bit. I will say that I almost completely agree with you, Rupert. But it wouldn't surprise me if he earned targets. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that you can start or is going to be a flex option or anything, but he can run routes at a pretty decent rate. I don't think his route running is not earning him targets. I think he's good enough in that area. He's going to earn some targets, especially on a roster that's depleted. And he's athletic. Like the biggest knock on him is those ball skills things that you mentioned, Rupert. And I'm not going to pretend like that's not a huge thing, because it is. But I think when you're being force fed the ball, like maybe he and the guy that they drafted later are going to be force fed the ball. I can see a path where he's fantasy relevant just because they have nobody else. With that being said, I do agree that he's not a great player, and they could have gotten better players. And there were better players still on the board after tonight. So,
yeah, the fact that he's 6'3" and 206 pounds, and yet we have him with a 4 for contested catch, or at least I have him for a 4 for contested catch in my personal recliner rating. It says a lot. His physicality score is low. You mentioned the drops. So yeah, I agree with your analysis of him as a player, but it is intriguing. Like when you're that big, we've got him graded at 7.5 for speed, burst, quickness, which are pretty plus marks for a guy that's 6'3", 200 plus, and at a 7.5 for short to intermediate routes. So it's not like there's nothing there to work with, but the overall grade is a 65.13. So we like him a little bit better than Dazon Stribling, for whatever that's worth. But he's graded just barely above the average backup. He is in the range of backup with starter upside. So how about that? Take that for whatever it's worth. But yeah, I will skip ahead here, and there's no sense in acting like it's a mystery. Like Chris Bell is the other guy they took. Round 3, pick 94. Chris Bell is a much better player, in my opinion. When he gets healthy, I don't think he would have been on the board this late in the 3rd round if it wasn't for his ACL injury. So he had surgery in December. I don't think he's going to be ready for training camp. In a lot of draft classes, that would scare me off of him. But in this draft class, when you're talking about a guy who got day 2 draft capital, and we had graded as a high-end flex option, He's got a ton of athletic traits, and he ends up, on a team with a clear path where he could realistically be their wide receiver one. Like that's an upside dart that I'm very willing to throw in the second round of this particular draft class. And I think out of all of the guys we're going to talk about tonight, outside of him and like Antonio Williams, he's a guy that I'm very interested in. So I think, if you're having a competition in camp for who's wide receiver one, if Chris Bell's healthy, I think he clearly beats out Caleb Douglas in that competition.
No, I completely agree with that. He's the better graded across the board. And yeah, if it wasn't for the injury, like we're not even having this conversation. I think his weakest point, maybe as crazy as it is, we talked about Caleb Douglas. Like Caleb Douglas is a better route runner than Chris Bell is, but Chris Bell clears him in every other category. So he's the better wide receiver, and I think once he gets healthy, that's going to show up.
Yeah, my recliner rating, I have Chris Bell 10 points higher. It is a massive gap there.
Yep, for me as well. So, yeah, we'll go back and cover a few of the guys that we skipped between when Douglas was drafted and when Bell was drafted. So that's Drew Allar goes to the Steelers, round 3. Zachariah Branch to the Falcons, round 3, pick 79. Jacoby Lane to the Baltimore Ravens, round 3, pick 80. Any interest in any of these three guys?
I actually do like Lane. Like, that's a really good compliment to Zay Flowers' play style. Like, the contested catch kind of guy, can win the jump balls. I think Lamar needs someone like that with, his aging DeAndre Hopkins out the door. And they just need something like that. I mean, I don't think it's going to be very fantasy relevant, but I'm probably going to get more shares than I anticipated coming to the night with how gross the rest of the round has been. So, and then Branch has a clear path to be wide receiver 2 there, even though we don't think he runs routes very well, doesn't have the best ball skills, but they got to get someone else the ball other than Drake London. So, I could see them like scheming up like quick, little routes within 5 yards to get him in the ball in his hands. But not terribly interested in any of them.
Yeah, I don't completely hate the Branch landing spot, just because like he's got to be better than Jahan Dotson is, right? Like, so
You would think.
so you would think at this point, like there are targets available for him, and even if he doesn't have to be a superb route runner, like there's a path where they can get the ball in his hands, and he's a phenomenal athlete. So it may be more of a hit and miss, boom and bust type of player, maybe better for like a best ball type league. But I could see a path where he has some good weeks. Again, I'm kind of with Rupert, not terribly interested in either one of them, but there's a path where something maybe could happen here.
Yeah, I like Branch more than Lane. I think, again, Mooney departure leaves 72 targets up for grabs. Wide receiver 2 is wide open. Now, as far as second target earner, that's probably Pitts. But there's an opportunity to be the third target earner in that offense. I just don't think Jacoby Lane is very good, honestly. So I'm probably, I don't know. Between the two, I think Branch is a talent that I'm a little bit more interested in. But yeah, between the three guys, as weird as it is to say, Aller might be the most interesting.
That tells you how gross the night has been.
I know.
Matt Cooper saying
Aller is
I
one of
might be
those
in
guys
on
that
Drew
has always
Aller.
been unrealized potential. But he does have the traits, and there's nobody there in Pittsburgh. Like, if Rodgers comes back, which I think he probably will, but who knows with that guy, then, maybe next season they draft somebody else and none of these guys are relevant, but there's a chance at some point that we could see a Drew Allar versus Will Howard quarterback battle for a chance to start for that team. which at least to me would give you like a resell. Like if Aller at any point got the shot, I think there would be a sell window. So that alone in this class makes me interested. But some guys that went a little later in the third round that I'm much more interested in, Chris Brazzell, the second, goes to the Carolina Panthers, pick 83, and Ted Hurst goes to the Bucks, round 3, pick 84. Personally, as a Panthers fan, I would have rather it been the opposite. I would have rather us taken Ted Hurst. But yeah, are we interested in these guys? I feel like these guys are more interesting than the guys that we just talked about. So,
Agreed.
Rupert, I know you liked that pick for the Panthers more than I did. Give me your thoughts on Brazzell.
I just think like having that like field stretcher, the guy that can really take the top off the defense, and just another guy that has a really huge catch radius, I think is just beneficial. I love his athleticism and his body control and ball skills. I'd like to see a little bit more refinement with the route running. But I mean, honestly, he's going to be the third option to me behind T-Mac and Coker. So I could see us running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And I mean, I don't love it for fantasy purposes. I love it more for being able to open things up a little bit more for T-Mac, to be honest. Agree. Like I have Brazzell and Hurst graded way higher than Jacoby Lane and Caleb Douglas, Malachi Fields. I'm shocked those guys went before these two.
Yeah, I mean Brazzell, like the way that he moves at his size is pretty freakish. Certainly a lot of talent there. Questions about his maturity, questions about his work ethic, and I think a really like you mentioned, unrefined route runner. So to me, clearly the third option at best. Like Jimmy Horn might play over him. I don't know, but like Brazzell's gonna have to earn his way on the field, and he's like a stash flyer. Like I have him graded as a flex option, but I don't really believe that. If I'm being honest, I don't really believe that he's going to be.
His grade is really pulled up by those elite like ball skills and catch radius, the body control. Like those things are so elite that it really pulls up his score.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I don't see a clear path to fantasy relevance for him, but he is an intriguing talent. And then Ted Hurst, like big body guy, take on the Mike Evans role. I think he could potentially start alongside Igbuka and Godwin. Again, at least in the short term, probably more of a best ball guy. But I definitely saw more route running in his game than I did Brazzell. Ted Hurst is going to be a guy, I think that, again, we'll see how day 3 goes. How far do I end up having to drop some guys that I love, like a Surratt or a Mike Washington or Emmett Johnson? But like Ted Hurst could be a riser for me. And it is a pretty intriguing dart throw in this gross class to me. Like there's some serious traits on film with that guy, and there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think you mentioned Antonio Williams earlier. Ted Hurst is one of those guys for me that like I would feel more comfortable taking it like into the first, top of the second, and just be done with it because I know that the traits are there and he's a good player and the opportunity's there.
Wow,
those
into the first.
Well, I'm more comfortable
on Ted Hurst.
I'm more comfortable beginning at the second, but I mean, depending on some of these other guys, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to end up at ranking them. That's probably a little too high, but I mean, when you look at the film grade, opportunity, and some of the other things that's happened in this draft, or especially tonight, like I don't think top of the second, that 201 to 205 range is outside of the possibility for me right now because you're not getting all 3 of those things to hit on many of these prospects.
Yeah, middle of the second I think is fair. I mean, right now, guys that I have ahead of him that haven't been drafted yet, and we'll see, would be Surratt and Washington Jr., Coleman, Justin Jolie and Emmett Johnson. So depending on what happens with those guys, I've got Hurst at 21 right now, but he could potentially be up in that like 15-ish range, which that's not far off from what you're talking about. So yeah, we'll see what happens there with Ted Hurst, but definitely again, would normally be a third round guy in most draft classes, but I think is a second round guy in this particular class. A couple guys here at the end. We're gonna wrap this up quick. We're already at 50 minutes. Xavion Thomas goes to the Chicago Bears, round 3. Special teamer. Yeah, we're gonna. I think we'll do a profile for him just because he went day 2, and he ran a 4.3, and people are gonna wonder. We have 3 games of tape, so we can give a recliner rating. We haven't done a profile yet, so I think he'll be number 73 in our rookie guide. We'll let you know if we see anything that changes our minds, but at this point, I think special teamer. Kalen Black to the San Francisco 49ers. I don't get this one. Why? Why?
Him as RB3 is the crazy part.
Didn't even get a combine invite. Goes as the 3rd running back off the board over, like after Mike Washington Jr. crushed the combine, I thought for sure he made himself some money. Like no way he falls outside of day 2 with the combine that he had. And Kalen Black, who didn't even get an invite and didn't have a stellar production profile, and I don't think is that good of a player for whatever reason. Again, Kyle Shanahan thinks he's smarter than everybody else, I guess. But I'm not interested here from a fantasy perspective.
I have him graded at 59. I forgot I had him that low.
I would rather have Jordan James, and that's saying something. If Isaac Guerrero is still on that roster, I would rather have Isaac Guerrero. I know they traded Brian Robinson Jr. So yeah, there's going to be somebody that's backing up Christian McCaffrey. I don't think it's going to be Kalen Black. I would fade him in your rookie drafts. And then the last guy on here that's listed as potentially fantasy relevant is Eli Raridon, New England Patriots. Hunter Henry is still there. I don't know how long his contract is. There is some upside with Raridon, and there are some analysts out there that have said that he's like their tight end too. So I think he's worth talking about here. We were never quite that high on him. I think in terms of our recliner rating, he came out for us at a 69.35, which would put him at the high end of a backup with starter upside, like almost into that flex option territory. Yeah, he's got good size, good athleticism, moves decently well. There's at least a little bit of upside here, paired with Drake May, if he can kind of take over for Hunter Henry in that job one day, which is a big if. I'm not, I think we're always so quick to be like, oh, well, they drafted him, so I guess he's the next guy up. I don't think that's a given here, but it's at least in the range of outcomes. Y'all have any interest here in Eli Raridon?
I mean, with how disgusting this draft has been, I think he's definitely worth a dart throw. I didn't hate his tape. Like the more I watched, the more I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see some things. Yeah, like I think our grade backup a starter upside. I mean, that looks like his career path at this point. So there's definitely some guys that I like more, but that's a pretty solid landing spot. So I can see myself coming away some shares.
Totally agree.
I just realized I don't even have him ranked. For whatever reason, I completely missed him in my pre-draft rankings. So I'm gonna have to add him in somewhere, but I'm gonna guess he's gonna fall in my 3rd round somewhere, maybe. But we'll see. Maybe he'll be higher than that in this class. Here at the end of the show, we're at 54 minutes, but if you're following along, you're like, hey, there's a bunch of names that you guys didn't talk about. I'm going to list some guys that were drafted that are probably blocking tight ends that you don't need to worry about, that we're probably not going to even do a rookie profile on. Nate Borkirker,
You did say that, right?
Marlon Klein. Those guys both went round 2. In round 3, you had we already talked about Sam Roosh and Oscar Delp. You had Will Kakmarek, who I had never heard of before tonight, but I guess he was Max Clare's backup at Ohio State, and the Dolphins spent a 3rd-round pick on him. Don't know anything about him, but I'm going to assume that he's probably not worth
He
your
had
time.
255 receiving yards.
55 career receiving yards, is that what you said?
255.
255. That's at least a little bit better. Yeah, so those are tight ends that went day 2 that we didn't talk about because you shouldn't care about them. So that does it for round 2, or day 2 rather. And some guys that we certainly are going to have our eye on to see where they go in day 3. Very sad that they did not go day 2. But that would be Elijah Surratt, who we really like his tape. That would be certainly Mike Washington Jr., Jonah Coleman, and Emmett Johnson, that trio of running backs. Justin Jolie is another guy we're going to be keeping a close eye on day 3. Skylar Bell and CJ Daniels are somewhat interesting, depending on where they land. But, again, everything's going to be a dart throw. Bryce Lance, Jamari Taylor, Terrion Stewart. Like, these are guys, Michael Trigg, Seth McGowan. I kind of expected him to be day 3 because of his off the field issues and being as old as he is and all that. But he's got some traits. So those are guys that to some extent we're going to be keeping an eye on to see if they land somewhere, maybe with some opportunity, and hopefully early day 3. Like, I hope some of those guys go round 4 for us. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. We're almost at an hour, so we're going to log off. Thank you so much for listening, being part of the Couch Scouts family. Please leave a rating review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and click the link in our show notes to join our free community Discord. Also, shout out to our guy Max, who hung out with us. It was 5 a.m. his time in Luxembourg in Europe, a small country most of you maybe have never even heard of. So that was fun hanging out with him in the draft room in the Discord tonight. So yeah, join the Discord. It's a fun community. And thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow for one last draft special. We're going to do that post NFL draft rookie mock for you guys. So we'll see you then.